It's sort of become a tradition of sorts that they start a new presidential term,
Sure.
Each visits each other's country. So is this more symbolic, or is there something really important and vital for this specific visit?
I think it's absolutely vital for Vladimir Putin. Absolutely. I mean, China has proven to be the vital lifeline, if you will, as the war heads into its deep into its third year now. And again, Moscow relies on Beijing for the overwhelming amount of trade and economic support. I'm not necessarily saying that its products from China are supporting the war, but they have found the dual-use technologies have been finding their way onto the battlefield, whether it's semiconductors, ball bearings, or other equipment and technology. So clearly, Vladimir Putin is going there. Yes, there is a tradition to go to your best friend, if you will, in which you have a no-limits partnership signed a couple of years ago, moments before, of course, Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine. But to go there as well to shore up this support. And he has already arrived. I mean, he's an early riser. He gets to Beijing before we got to work this morning. So it's clearly an indispensable ally, Beijing is. And what will be interesting as well is what will be the messaging coming from Xi Jinping as this war does go into its third year, and the pressure from the United States has been ramped up on potential sanctions on Chinese banks for potentially supporting indirectly or directly the war in Ukraine. So that's a delicate balancing act that Xi Jinping will obviously be walking as well.
Steve, you'd imagine there's quite a lot of a variety of asks, right, given that he's bringing with him his new defence chief and his central bank governor?
There, you just put it right there. I mean, he's bringing his new defense chief, who is an economist by trade, and his central bank governor. So that tells you right there what Vladimir Putin needs. You know, as a student of World War II history, I know exactly what a country needs to sustain a prolonged war. You need friends, you need finances, and you need firepower. Now, again, I'm not saying necessarily that China is supplying that firepower, but again, the dual-use technologies are finding their way onto the battlefield. And as the key and perhaps main or only diplomatic friend in this world right now, Vladimir Putin needs those finances to continue this war in Ukraine. And you know, trade between the two countries in 2023 hit a record. No surprise there. $240 billion. That was more than double what it was in 2020. But we've already started to see, as I talked about those, possible sanctions on Chinese banks, you started to see that trade number come down in April for a second month. And basically, Russian media has been talking about how, these transactions have been kind of held up by the Chinese on some electronics and some products since the end of March. Does that indicate there's some hesitancy for the Chinese banks to facilitate this kind of trade under the threat, potentially, of secondary sanctions from the United States? So that's why this potential meeting is critical, because the central bank governor is coming, a new defense chief who is an economist by trade is coming. The speculation is they're going to try to find ways to facilitate and finance this kind of trade, a lifeline for Moscow, at the time of increased threat of sanctions. I was there in Beijing when Antony Blinken again reiterated, we are looking at the banks and we will take whatever necessary actions at our hand to stop any potential facilitation of the war coming from China. So it's absolutely critical for Vladimir Putin to get those finances.